Missing and losing fish? Cringe. I reckon you can do better. In fact, I know you can do better, and I'm here to help you. In this video series targeting kingfish, so far we've covered various important topics. But today our focus is patience, potentially the most important aspect of spearfishing. Between this video and the last, a few weeks had gone by, all the while I was still sticking out for another kingfish. During this time I also got a new action camera, the Osmo Action 4. Here we have a side-by-side comparison of kingfish schools with no editing essentially. You can see there is a vast difference in the visual clarity of the images. The camera was a birthday present, and for my birthday I managed to get out for a dive. During that dive there were schools of kingfish, but the opportunity never quite came around to take the shot. For a while now I have been challenging myself to not miss or lose any fish. As of recording this voiceover, it's been a little over 10 months, and I wasn't keen to break the streak on any of these fish. This dive we're hitting one of my favourite North Shore diving spots with Sophie.
I'm just going to have a little oh, there was a big splash just there.
Hoping to get onto some fish, but no high expectations really. Conditions were looking fantastic for this area. Flat, calm, clear water, and there even seemed to be some fish around, which there isn't always. However, on this dive, come up empty-handed. While I was still underwater, Sophie, who was at the surface, spotted a large fish below.
The fish like at the bottom kind of spoke and I looked, and there was like, I just saw a big shadow.
Yeah, I'd say kingy. I've been following those little ones. We can try to go an even shallow, it'll be nice for you.
I swam with the kingies. There were so many of them. They were all swimming around me. It was so cool. They were like this big. Like 20 kingies.
I spent some time in the area trying to locate the kingfish. However, I myself couldn't. They must have known I had a spear gun and gone to check out Sophie instead. But I'd spent the last 10 dives watching kingfish and not shooting them. Maybe I'll just be going another dive without. In the meantime, however, I decided to break open some kinnet. When it comes to hunting snapper, ideally what you want to do is not be seen at all. Using the sun to your advantage, keeping it behind you so the snapper can't even work out what you are. However, I take snapper a lot less seriously. I find it quite fun just breaking open the kinnet, jumping down there and seeing what comes in. After a while, after doing a few dives and not shooting fish, the snappers start to become very curious and more comfortable with your presence. Personally, as someone who dives for enjoyment and footage, I find this way of getting snapper a lot more enjoyable than just coming over a ledge and having to make a split-second decision on a fish. The footage from it sucks also. You get like, as I said before, 2 seconds before the fish just gets a spear through its head. Most of the fish that are coming in at the moment are quite small. However, there's a few legal snapper in there, and a couple nice ones hanging right out the back. The burley does of course bring in other fish as well, such as these small jack mackerel on the top of the screen, as well as some spotted wrasse you might see down the bottom right hand corner. In this area it's also frequent that you're going to be getting sweep, which are the greyish blue mau triangular type looking fish. Spending time with your prey can make for much better hunting further down the track. If the only time you'd ever seen a snapper is when you're coming over a ledge and shooting it in 2 seconds, then how much are you really going to learn about the fish? But if you come down here, drop to the bottom, spend some time, see what they do, see how they interact with each other and the world around them, and you can really learn a lot more about the fish, which you can then employ in future to hunt them more successfully. All the while I was spending time with these snapper, I was hoping that a kingfish was going to come through and I'd get an opportunity at that. Try my best to employ patience, but by this point I was starting to lose faith in having anything to eat. With an empty fridge, I decided now was a good opportunity to try and target one of these snapper for real. This time it's a bit more serious. I'm kind of half hiding myself, waiting a little way back from where those kinnet are. So I don't have perfect view of it, but I can see when a good fish comes by, extend out and take a shot. When you shoot a fish, your first priority is to secure that fish. And if you can do that safely on the same dive, by all means go and get that fish before something else does. This point of going straight for the fish is somewhat in contrast to patience. You want to be employing patience before the shot. But once you pull the trigger, it's all go. And you better hope you pick the right opportunity, otherwise you're losing a fish and making an ass of yourself. Patience up until a point, then it's all action, and you better be ready for it. In the meantime, while all this was happening, Sophie was up in the shallows, and I'd promised shortly beforehand that we can get going soon. With the snapper secured, in the float boat, dispatched, gilled, gutted, bled, it's time to head in pretty much. When I shot the snapper, I left my gun at that same spot when I swam off to go and put it in the float boat. It's sitting here with the shaft on the bottom, water's so shallow, the gun is just floating there. I start pulling up the shooting line, getting ready to put the shaft back in, and swim back in. But this kingfish decided to make an appearance, and my plans quickly changed. Once the shaft is in, I connect the line release and begin to load my rubbers. Very anxious at this point, wondering if this kingfish is going to stick around. But I know I have to act calm, I have to act collected, even if I may not feel that way, if I want this fish to stick around. With one rubber loaded, I look at the fish weighing up my options, but recall back to a time where I loaded one rubber and it just bounced off the fish's head. And I didn't want that to happen again. So I get the second one loaded, I make sure everything's right, I have another look around for the kingfish, hoping it's still there. I'm waiting until I can see where the fish is exactly. I'm making sure to get a good breathe up here, because I know when I go down, the kingfish may spook off before eventually coming back in. I could be waiting a while on the bottom. By this point, I'm kind of thinking, damn, the fish is on to me. He knows what a spear gun is, he was just messing with me before he appears again. And I begin my descent down to the bottom. Quite a lot of things had worked out in our favour, but only due to patience. If we'd taken those opportunities as soon as we could, we may not be here right now. This location that I ended up on is no mistake. I've got a ledge to my left hand side, where I can hide my body down behind it. Over that ledge is where I'd seen the kingfish. I know if he comes from that same area, I'm going to have most of my body covered. I have the open side to my right where my shooting hand is. The kingfish is coming through now, from left to right. As I said earlier, it's all patience up until a point, then you better be ready for it. And kingfish do not mess around. Shooting a kingfish in shallow water is dangerous territory. If this were to get me around any rocks or a good bit of reef, there's a very good chance that that fish is goners. So I'm trying my best here to keep it off the bottom. Luckily for me, this fish is no monster, and despite its best efforts, I'm able to keep it on a relatively short leash. With some of the other fish earlier on in this series, this may not have been the case, and they would have been lost in areas like this. Quite quickly, I'm able to get my hand around the fish's tail, subduing it to a great extent. However, the fish still has a lot to go, and at this point, pretty much breaks free of the shaft. Before I'm able to put it back through, open the flopper, the old mate should be sticking there for the meantime. I pulled my knife out, getting ready to seal the deal on this fish, and it was an overwhelming sense of accomplishment, made possible by patience. In fact, patience is what made it so rewarding in the end, I think. For a few weeks before shooting this fish, I was lining up on kingfish, frequently, but always said to myself, it's not quite right, it's not quite right. I don't know if that's my fish, and I never took the shot, ever. I waited until the perfect opportunity. When I saw this fish come through, I knew that was my fish, and I went down and got it, and it only happened because of patience.
So what fish is, it's like usually about this big, right, it's usually about this big, and like that big. It's like kind of rounded, but it's stripy.
Poor Rory.
Really fat Rory. So they let me hang out with them for ages.
Yeah, they're still the friendliest fish.
Right up in the shallows too, like
Oh, yeah?
right up next to the rock. Also, I saw a crab that was this big.
Really?
Yeah, like it's huge. There's big ass crabs over there.
Attracting things into your life can sometimes be quite paradoxical. If there's something that you really want, often the best way to get it is not by acting like you really want it. If you want to have a really good shot at something, you need it to come to you. You're going to get a far better shot on fish if they're coming to you, as opposed to the opposite way around. If I saw that kingfish and was just staring at it the whole time while I was loading my gun and getting really excited, there is absolutely no chance that that fish is sticking around. Acting disinterested can be the best way to pique interest. Acting like you've got other stuff going on and you're focused on other things can make the other entity curious about what you're up to and want to come and check it out. Very obvious in fish, however, this same logic can be applied to humans. If there's a human that you're attracted to, you hang around them constantly, staring at them, being weird, acting like your whole world revolves around them, guess what? They're going to call you a creep. But if you're patient, if you deserve it, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen.